Welcome to He Did This to Me, the sports podcast from a father and son who happen to be mostly optimistic Knicks, Mets, and Jets fans. My name is Nick, a.k.a. Goody, and with me is my old man, a.k.a. the big guy, Noel. And just like his name, all we do is win. Let's get to the show. It's time to begin. The New York Mets lost a second consecutive game for the first time this season, dropping the rubber match 4-3 in Minnesota against the Twins. Mets started Brazaban and then got 3.1 strong innings from New Jersey native Justin Hagenman in his MLB debut. But Budo continued his up and down campaign, and Soto struck out 3 times and hit into a double play with the bases loaded. Big guy. The Mets currently rank 20th in runs per game and continue to struggle with runners in scoring position. Are you concerned with the Mets and their early offensive struggles thus far?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not that concerned. After last year, how worked up can you get this early? I mean, clearly it can be turned around. And in light of our, lack of runs, our record is very good. So, listen, I hope we turn it around, start scoring more runs. But I think I don't think there's a reason to panic or get really worked up. But yeah, of course, I'd like them to score more runs. Yeah, I want Soto to be raking and getting more big time hits. But you know what, man, he will come around. I'm very confident of that, and I think we'll be fine. But listen, we got to score runs, especially with runners in scoring position. It's been pretty bad so far.
Yeah, we rank below the Braves when it comes to hitting with runners in scoring position, which is kind of hard to understand considering like how badly they've started off the season. I feel like, the offense should come around at some point, but I mean, we're 11-7. It's not like, there was a time not too long ago where it was like our record was so good that you kind of felt like, all right, let me like pump the brakes, but we're a very bad stretch away from being in, somewhat of a panic mode. And this team comes into the season with a lot more just overall expectations than last season's team did. Last year was supposed to be a bridge year, according to our, our front office and according to most pundits. And then we end up turning that into a season where we're able to make it to within one game of getting to the World Series. This year, we come in with huge expectations. We go out and we get a guy like Juan Soto, and we expect him to be one of the anchors in this offense. And thus far, he's been subpar overall. He hasn't been the guy that we have expected. The numbers show it. And then if you watch, he's just not the typical level of, he doesn't have that comfort at the plate that you're used to from a guy like Juan Soto. Tough day today.
Swag.
He had 3 Ks. I'm sorry?
He doesn't have the swag like he's always.
No, he doesn't have the swag. You're not seeing a ton of Soto shuffles, and you're seeing him quite often look both overmatched and just over schemed a little bit. It seems like guys are understanding how to pitch him. They're getting ahead early in the count when he likes to take pitches, and then they're forcing him to stretch the zone. 3 more strikeouts today, a brutal double play. He hits the ball directly to the first baseman with the bases loaded and only 1 out. It ends up being a 4 unassisted double play. And then on top of everything else, the big comment that he made about not having the best hitter in baseball behind him and how that's affected some of the pitches that he's seen, speaking about last year with Aaron Judge being behind him and protecting him in the lineup. That ended up, being big news and being on the back of the post. Everybody's talking about it. Yankees fans are all, reveling in the fact that he hasn't started hot and that he seems to be missing the Yankees. What did you think about that comment? Did that bother you at all?
No, it didn't bother me. I think the guy asked him a question. He answered the question honestly. I mean, he had the best hitter in baseball hitting behind him last year. I mean, the only person who could possibly protect him better than Judge is Ohtani. I mean, let's be honest. So now, at some point, the pitchers, if Pete keeps doing what he's doing, are going to pitch him differently and not want to pitch to Pete as much. So it'll even itself out with him not hitting well. Nick, this baseball is such a long season, and as we know, it's about average. If the guy goes, 10 for his next 20, he'll be right where he needs to be. So, I mean, everybody, I think, needs to pump the brakes. Yes, there's reason to panic. But as I always say, Nick, with all of these teams, even if you think you improve in the offseason, that doesn't, it's not linear. You know, it's not a straight line. It doesn't mean that, okay, we're definitely going to be this much better next year. It's going to be ups and downs to it. Hopefully we figure it out. And, you know, there's more ups than downs.
I have a big problem with the comment. I think it shows a real lack of understanding of the moment. This is his second year in New York, so he should understand how the media here is going to try to bait you to get a headline. I think it shows a total lack of respect for Pete, and especially with the type of year he's having thus far. To make that comment, is Aaron Judge a better hitter than Pete Alonso, especially over these last few years? Absolutely. No question there. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, but with what has been done so far this season and the way that Pete has not only been one of the better hitters in baseball, but he's also been able to keep the heat off of Juan Soto, because without Pete and his 20 RBIs and his huge clutch hitting, who knows where the Mets would be, and people would be looking at Soto and his failures so far and putting much more of a microscope on them. To talk about how you don't have the same protection when you have a guy who is having the type of start that Pete is having, and not even at least throwing a disclaimer on the back end of that statement and saying something like, yeah, but you know, at the end of the day, Pete's doing a pretty good job. I got to step up. I first and foremost don't like him making it about anything else other than the fact that he needs to be better. I don't like it almost sounds like an excuse when you start talking about the type of protection that you have in the lineup. And then specifically, you got to figure out a way to add in there something about how well Pete actually has done in that role so far this year. If I'm somebody in that Mets organization, I'm talking about either like a Francisco Lindor as a leader, or maybe even somebody in the front office. I pull him aside and I say, hey, not a huge deal, but be a little bit more prepared and be able to answer that a little bit better next time. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I did have a problem with it. And as soon as I read it, I was like, you know, come on, guy, you got to avoid making this a headline. And also, Pete deserves a little bit of credit for the fantastic job he has done protecting you so far this season.
I've heard him be very complimentary about what Pete's done this year. I've heard him make other statements, just not in that answering
Yeah,
that
he
question.
missed it. He blew it in that particular the way that he answered that question. I thought was not fair to Pete overall, and also just not smart of him.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way, and I don't think it's, you know, grossly unfair. I hope that Pete's not bent out of shape about it. I don't think he should be. I think the guy just answered the question more honestly than he should have, probably. And I just don't think it's that big a deal, Nick. I don't think it's a big deal in that Mets locker room. I don't, but I don't know, obviously. But I don't think it is. I don't think it should be. I don't think it is, but obviously I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think I hope it's not a big deal in the locker room, and clearly it's not affecting Pete because he just continues to get, extra base hits basically a couple times a game. It seems like he had another good day today. He has been hitting for power. He's been hitting for average. He's been coming up clutch, and his defense has been stellar as well. I really, truthfully, like, where would we be right now without Pete Alonso? Who knows? And I'm hoping that he continues to just not only rake, but put himself in a position where before even the end of this season, maybe he can, eliminate Boris out of the equation like he did at the end of the negotiations this offseason, and let's get this extension done. Pete Alonso is that guy. He is been, it's been a great start to the season, a great Mets career thus far, and I'm hoping that we find a way to lock him up before the season is over. What have you thought about Pete and his overall approach and his start thus far? Clearly, he's looking like, one of the better first basemen in the major league. Do you think there's any chance that we get him locked up before the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, Cohen said as much, that he'd be open to having this conversation. And yeah, like you said, Nick, I think there'll be a time where Pete and Cohen speak to one another and make it happen. I mean, Cohen doesn't want to lose this guy. We know that. If Pete keeps doing what he's doing, there's no way he's going to want to lose this guy. But is he going to get Vladdy money? No, because he's not as young as Vlad. But he's actually in better shape than Vlad, even at his age now, but Vladdy's never been a body beautiful, right? But
Vlad has lost a lot of weight. He lost a lot of weight coming into the season. No, he looks trim. Okay. We haven't seen him. We played 3 games against Toronto.
A lot of those games was when I was traveling, so I didn't see. watch those games, and I just don't remember seeing Vlad come up to the plate. I don't know why.
Didn't you
I
go
might have
to a game versus Toronto?
I
Wasn't
did, but
you were
no.
you were in
Next,
attendance?
it was Florida.
Oh,
They were
okay.
playing
You
the
went against the
Marlins. They were
Marlins.
not playing. Yeah, they weren't.
No, yeah, you have been traveling quite a bit, and fans. That is the reason for the big guy not being on the show here recently, the last couple weeks. But yes, Vladdy is definitely looking a lot more trim. They say that he came in great shape with a great attitude, which is why they went ahead and got that deal done. The same deal that they couldn't get done all offseason, and many people were talking about him being a free agent this coming offseason, and they went ahead and got that done because of the way that he came in.
Yeah, no, he good for him, man. He's a quality player. But Pete's our guy. He's homegrown. We have every reason, especially if he keeps playing the way he's playing, Nick. Like you said, his defense has been fantastic, and his offense has been awesome as well. So I have no complaints with anything he's doing, and hopefully we can get him locked up.
A little bit of inside baseball for the He Did This to Me podcast. You know why you and I were both hearing the audio coming? I just figured it out too. Your phone was we were both still on the phone.
I realize that now. I just heard that.
Jesus, I know. I just ended the call because I was like, I'm like, what am I
You're
hearing?
the tech guy. You're the tech guy. You're supposed to figure these things out.
Yeah, okay. I'll take the blame on that one. We did also have a conversation about, is the camera plugged in right just before this podcast as well.
So now you're trying to blow me up nationally, right? Okay. See, that where we're going? I might need to go back on the road.
Yo, shout to everybody that is checking us out on X and on YouTube. If you're on X, jump over to the YouTube, hit that like, hit that subscribe. We appreciate all the love. Yeah, man. Look, the Mets, they lost their second game for the first time this season in consecutive days. And now they come home. They have a nice little home stand where they play the St. Louis Cardinals. And then it's going to be 3 against the Phillies. Really hope that we're able to start to, just score some more runs, man. I mean, it always comes down to how you hit with runners in scoring position. And we saw the two different sides of that with this team last season. Beginning of the season, horrible. Second half of the season, much better. And that's exactly how the team went. It is one of the most telling stats in baseball. We need to get those runs per game and hitting and runs in scoring position up into that top 10. It's going to be very hard to do the things that we hope this team can if we don't do that. And when you look at this team overall, you got to be extremely impressed with the pitching. Both the starters and especially the bullpen have been lights out. As you like to say, guys typically play a little bit closer to the back of their baseball card. If that happens with the pitching and we don't step up when it comes to the hitting, we can very quickly all of a sudden find ourselves hovering around 500. And then now all of a sudden, everybody starts to tighten up. Things get tough. And this series against Minnesota, we see a guy, a familiar face, Harrison Bader, absolutely kill us the entire series. He was crazy at the plate. He went 3 for 3 yesterday. I think he ends up being 5 of 7. And then he also in the field, he makes a great catch. Today, he guns down Winker at home with an absolute laser. Winker in the second inning, decides to try to go. He shouldn't have went, and he shouldn't have been sent. I think he kind of did it on his own without the coach, but he shouldn't have went, especially not getting called out at home in the second inning. I did not like that at all. But yeah, man, I feel like overall, this Mets team, I'm hoping that we can figure it out. I'm a little bit nervous about Soto just because we've seen, I thought that going and playing for the Yankees last year made him, immune to that like first year with the Mets fall off that we've seen so many times. But now, we're 18 games into the season and we haven't seen him get the type of hot that we'd like to see. He hasn't been able to deliver in the big clutch moments. I'm just hoping that this is not a New York thing. It's not a Mets thing and not a New York thing, because so far he hasn't been as advertised, but I'm not going to push the panic button just yet.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're close. You're edging close towards that panic button.
I'm moving that way. I'm moving that way a little bit.
You got to calm down.
Come on, man. Let's go,
it's
Soto.
18 games, and Soto's going to be fine. Again, Soto's going to play like the back of his baseball card. He is. I'm sure he had some bad stretches last year with the Yankees. Obviously, we didn't see it. I didn't see it. I didn't watch any Yankee games. But also, too, he had some amazing protection that affected how people pitched him. That may change. People are more concerned about pitching around him So he's getting I heard somebody quote a stat yesterday that analytics shows that he's getting the least amount of pitches to hit of anybody in the league, as far as pitches that are in the strike zone for him to hit. So hopefully that turns around. Hopefully he turns it around. I think he will.
I think that's more a product of him being Juan Soto than who's hitting behind him. I mean, especially in today's MLB, people make adjustments extremely quickly, and it's pretty well known what Pete has done so far this season. I mean, Pete got walked in extra innings yesterday, and you could see that basically nobody wants to throw this guy a strike in a big moment. So I just think that Soto just needs to be better. I'm hoping that he will be. I have faith that he will be, but overall, I need him to step it up, and I need him to do so quickly because Pete's not going to stay this red hot. You know what I mean? Pete's not going to hit 340 something this year. So he's going to come back to earth a little bit.
Other guys are going to come up too. Vientos is going to play better. Lindor is going to play better. All of these guys are going to, play how they know how to play. And, Pete will fall off. These other guys will come up. Hopefully we meet in the middle. Everybody's happy.
I hope so. Shout out to my guy CP, who I hopped on with him early on his post game. Check him out, CP's True Mets Talk. He says that he thinks that Soto is going to be okay. He promises me, hey, I try my best. He says this lineup is definitely going to mash, guaranteed. I try my best not to get too nervous too early, but I've just seen it so many times with these guys in their first year in the Mets, just not living up to what we typically see from them. And we have a couple guys in this lineup who are not doing what we expect of them. One of those being Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo is now hitting 206 on the season. He is swinging at a lot of first pitches, popping up in big, big moments. And I'm a believer that, do you want to move Pete out of the 3-hole when he's hitting so well? That's might be playing with fire a little bit there, but I think we need to go ahead and make that move and put either Vientos or Nimmo, depending on who the opposing starting pitcher is, in the 2-hole. Get Soto to the 3-hole, get him in positions where he's up, and there's guys on in front of him, so therefore they have to pitch more to him, and then also get Pete into that spot where he is hopefully being your typical cleanup hitter. Kind of hard to mess with it, but do you feel like it's too early for Mendy to maybe switch it up when it comes to the overall lineup?
I mean, listen, this next few games, like you said, against the Cardinals and the Phillies is going to be a telling, really tell the tale. If we do badly against those two teams and don't score enough runs, I'm pretty sure Mendy's going to shake it up. But, I think he's going to probably try to ride it out through these next two series and see how we do. Because as we know in baseball, the worst thing you can do is knee-jerk reactions. You have to take it easy. And you know what? If there's a manager in baseball I've trusted in the last 20 years, there's not been one I've trusted more than Mendy. So, I think he's got his finger on the pulse. I think he's a bright guy. I think he's a good manager. So I'm willing to ride with him.
So much trust for Mendoza, who has managed one season and 18 games, and you trust him more than Buck? You love Buck. You were Mr.
I did like Buck. I did like Buck, but then again, Buck, I feel like Mendy's almost like a new age guy in that he does like the analytics, but he doesn't swear by them. I like that about him. And listen, I love Mendy last year. The Mets suck this year, and I'll be like, get him out, which we won't do. But I think Mendy is good. I mean, that's my feeling right now, but I've known him for 1 year, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, shout to our guy Keith Watkins, always showing love. Greetings from the ATL. Shout to you, Keith. And CP is saying the big guy is rocking with Mendy over Willie Randolph. Yeah, I mean, I love Willie. I love Willie.
I love Willie back in the day. I think if I'm not mistaken, on picture day years ago, me and your Uncle Godfrey were at the Yankee game, and I was thinking he got a picture. Godfrey got to sit down with Willie Randolph, but I think it was Roy White, not Willie Randolph. So, yeah, I don't know who I took a picture with, some nameless Yankee.
Okay, Jose Siri. Siri is he's out long term. He's got a broken fibula. Fouled the ball off of his shin. and now he's out. I heard that he's on crutches. And you now have a Jeff McNeil taking rehab starts in center field as he makes his way back to the bigs. Acuna is an option. Tyrone Taylor obviously can play a very good defensive center field, but offensively, he's been a bit of a joke so far this season. Today, though, he did hit the ball hard 3 times. He was able to get a base hit. He had an absolute screamer that Bader made an amazing play on where we would have been able to take the lead. And early on in the game, he hit a ball to the warning track that at one point looked like it might get out. So my question for you is, who do you see being the Mets' everyday center fielder or getting the bulk of the starts at center field moving forward in these next couple months while we don't have any Jose Siri?
I think right now it'll be Tyrone Taylor, and you mess around with the corners because Tyrone Taylor can obviously play that position well. He's a very good fielder. And listen, I wouldn't mind seeing Acuna out there with the speed he has. If he can field the ball and catch the ball well, which I don't know, I've never seen him in the outfield. He clearly has the speed to play the center field position and cover a lot of ground. And just with how good a fielder he is, I think he will be. I think he would be a decent center fielder. I really do. I love watching that guy run the bases. He's like me and your mom think he looks like a cartoon character running the bases with it because he's so short. But he's a good player. He plays hard. I don't know about Squirrel out there in center field. I mean, his arm isn't so strong. And listen, in a pinch, can Marte play center field, or is he more of a corner guy? He can play left.
I just think Marte. I don't think Marte is going to be playing in the field much at all this year.
Right.
I just don't think he's going to play much in the field at all. And I think that Tyrone Taylor is a good defensive center fielder. I think when you start to ask him to play every day, his ability at the plate, he's a fourth outfielder. He's not an everyday outfielder. He's just not. So I really think that the answer ends up becoming Acuna. And that being because Jeff McNeil, I know that he's been playing some center, in the minors, or at least he's about to start. And I don't see him being a center fielder in the major leagues. I actually think his arm is okay. It's serviceable. It's way better than Nimmo's. I don't want to see Nimmo in center field either. And so
Acuna cover the ground. Squirrel.
That's the thing. It has to be Acuna. It has to be Acuna, honestly, because first and foremost, if a guy typically can play in the infield, usually those guys can figure out the outfield. Not always.
Exactly.
There's the Daniel Murphys of the world who was an absolute, he was an absolute adventure when he was in the outfield. But Acuna, obviously great baseball instincts. He's got the speed to be able to cover all the ground in center field. We don't know what he is as an outfielder. I know he's got some experience in the minors playing in the outfield, but we haven't seen it on the major league level. And if he does end up playing center field, he's going to have to learn it on the fly in the major league level to a certain extent. But I don't really see what the other option is. The other thing about that is, okay, so right now, if Jeff McNeil were to be activated, I think everybody knows that it would be Brett Beatty who would be sent down. Brett Beatty did have 2 hits today, but overall his play at the plate and his play in the at the feet in the field hasn't been so great. Today he had another time where he threw a ball home, and if the guy wasn't out by a mile, he would have been safe because he threw it to the wrong side of the bag. But Beatty overall having a disappointing start after a red hot spring, I think that makes it an easy decision to send him down and keep Acuna. We need Acuna's overall just electricity that he provides for this team. He provides some electricity on the bases. We haven't really seen that in this organization since like Jose Reyes. And he is a solid infielder who can play 3 different positions. And if he can play in the outfield, then he becomes a guy who, even though he's somewhat of a utility player, will pretty much be in the lineup every single day. And I love what he brings to our lineup with that speed. And he continues to, since he's been in the bigs, just show signs of being a legit hitter and a guy who can get you some extra base hits with some doubles. He's not going to hit home runs like his brother does, but then once he gets on the bases, he just is an absolute menace. So I'm hoping that's what we end up seeing with him, and I'm just hoping that this Mets team starts to hit the ball a little bit. I have every faith that they will, but I need to see it.
Yeah, obviously, we all need to see it. But I agree with you. I believe that they will, and I love what I'm seeing out of Acuna. I feel badly if Beatty's the odd man out, but if he's the odd man out, at least he'll have a nice car to drive wherever he's got to go.
If you're feeling the content or you think we are two loathsome, offensive brutes and yet you can't look away, give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating. Make sure you subscribe and or hit that notification button on YouTube or wherever you're listening. Our Knicks open up the postseason against the upstart Detroit Pistons this Saturday at 6 Eastern. Knicks were 1-3 against the Pistons this season, including last week's 115-106 loss with the Knicks at full strength. Before we talk about the matchup, I want to ask you a question. The Knicks finished 51 wins. They finished third in the Eastern Conference. But overall, how did you feel about this season? Did the Knicks live up to your expectations or did they fall short?
I mean, they fell a little bit short because I think we had lofty expectations. But again, Nick, I think that people, myself included, they play well one year, we get a little bit better. So you immediately think that's going to make us be better as far as record wise, and so much better. But I do think at the start of the year, I predicted like 55 wins. So we fell about 4 short. I think that we were all very high on the Cat signing, especially early when you were seeing the returns and us playing really well and winning a lot of games early. I think we fell off a little mid-year and then further in the year. But I do believe that we're a better team. We're just not as gritty a team. And at times that can be very frustrating. I don't know what we do to regain that grit. We just, we should be better defensively, but we're not. We're better offensively, but not all the time. And it gets concerning, obviously, especially against a team like we're about to play. So do I think we had a better season? Yes. But I think last year there were much less expectations. So last year you feel like was a better year because we did much better than we thought we would do. This year we had much higher expectations, so we may have fallen short. So that becomes a disappointment for most people, and I think that, I think we'll be all right. But we I don't know if we're a better team. We need to work together more or what, but I don't know what's going to happen after this year, depending on what happens in these playoffs.
I think it's okay to take a step back and say, hey, man, we just won 50 games for the second year in a row with all these terrible times that we've had over the last couple decades. We should be happy and thankful for that overall.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that this season has been a disappointment. We went out and we made huge moves. We bring in Mikal Bridges. We give up a bunch of picks. We bring in Karl Anthony Towns. We give up Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. You don't do those things to win one more game, especially with amazing injury luck. That's the thing. We were extremely healthy this season, and we were able to win one more game. My man CP says in the comments, he says, I don't know, man. I think last year's Knicks team was better. I agree. I think last year's team was better than this year's team. I think that especially if you could factor in a healthy Julius, like this team never this year looked like the Knicks did in January of last year after they got OG and when Julius was healthy. Obviously, he ends up being out the rest of the season after that dirty play by Jaime Jaquez. And now you look at a Knicks team that is going into the playoffs, and we're not playing our best ball right now. We are going to be healthy, fully healthy to start the playoffs, but we're not playing our best ball as of late. The numbers show you that, and so does the eye test. We're reintegrating Brunson, and what it really comes down to for me, and I know that my guy CP definitely agrees. He's been asking for it since the beginning, but we're going to talk about it. So we'll go ahead and ask the big guy, how are you feeling about, as he calls him, Mikal Bricks? I've also seen him called Brickale by some people on Twitter. And really, I think that what we end up seeing from him in this playoff series is going to be the difference in how it goes overall and how we feel about this team going into next season, because we gave up a lot for the guy. We're expecting him to be a big contributor for this Knicks team. And when I say we gave up a lot, it's not necessarily the fact that we gave up all those picks and those picks are so valuable. It kind of made it the last move. You know what I mean? When you give up those many picks, if you can't make a move for another big player without including a big, haul of picks. So that to me is why it's a lot, not necessarily because of the value of the picks, but just because there is no other big moves to be made now. And I'm just interested to see how he approaches this series. I feel like this series, I've been saying since the middle of the season, I wanted to avoid Detroit, but we got them. And I know a lot of people feel like the Knicks are they are the betting favorite. I think last time I saw they were like minus 390, which is like a huge number. I'm surprised that we are favored so strongly against a team that we went 1-3 against. And like I said, we just lost to them at full strength just last week. And I think a lot of it is going to come down to schematically how we go about it in this series. First and foremost, we cannot overhelp on Cade. Cade is going to do his thing. We know Cade is going to do his thing. He's going to get his. He's one of the best young players in basketball, and he is ascending to becoming a superstar. Hopefully, this playoffs is not his coming out party, but even if he is going to kill us, I think one of the biggest things that we have to do is let him kill us and not overhelp on him and get everybody else going. Typically, that is not how the Knicks play. The Knicks are we are more concerned with helping and therefore leaving wide open shooters than any team in the league. And that is a Tibbs philosophical thing. It has always been his MO that he likes to keep people out of the paint and guard the rim as opposed to guarding the three. I'm hoping that, this week off and these last couple weeks that somebody's been able to get through to him, and we are strategically and schematically going to put more of an emphasis on guarding the three. The other thing that I think needs to happen is we need Cat to shoot more threes. There's two things that are involved with that. He needs to stay out there behind the 3-point line and not fade into the paint sometimes before he gets the ball. And Brunson has to look for him more. On Hot Hand Theory, they had a perfect example, and they showed plenty of them. And I know I've watched this many times where they run the pick and roll, and Cat's there wide open behind the 3-point line, and Brunson doesn't just immediately give it to him. Immediately. Give him that ball. He shoots the ball so well, especially above the break, and he's going to shoot like 45%, 50% on that shot. We need his attempts up. He can't be shooting 4 or 5 threes a game. Cat needs to shoot like 7 threes a game. It's the reason that we traded for him. It is the number one advantage that he has, and it opens up the entire offense. And overall, just in general, both him and Brunson, and again, this is a coaching thing in my opinion, they need to run pick and roll more. The amount that they run pick and roll compared to how successful they are at it, the correlation makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm hoping those are some adjustments that we can make in this first round.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe there are going to be some adjustments. I do think that, Tibbs is the kind of coach. I think a lot of coaches hold a lot back for the playoffs, and hold something back. I did hear one guy today, your man Canty, say that he thought that Cade Cunningham is the best player in this series, better than Brunson. I disagree. I think
that's
Jalen
nonsense.
Brunson is the best player in this series. I don't know about that betting line, where's that heavy a favorite. But I did hear Alan Hahn say this morning on ESPN that he felt the Knicks were going to win in 5. I thought that was a pretty aggressive view. But I will tell you, Nick, this first game is huge. It's huge. I mean, we need to beat them this first game and need to beat them. It would be really great if we could beat them solidly, because we need to kind of like we don't need to let them build in confidence and all of that. We need to stop that, both in game and in series. And if we don't, it's going to be hard to bring these guys back. Now, they play a physical game, Nick. We need to play a physical game. But as I always tell you, there's a difference between we need to play solid. We need to play firm. We don't need to play physical where we're trying to be physical and trying to do tough guy stuff, because it's not who we are. We just need to be solid and firm. And there's a difference between that and playing physical, if you get what I'm saying and people hear me and feel what I'm saying. So those things I think are very important for how we're going to do in this postseason, and especially in this series against a young, active team. But we need to, rebound the ball solidly. Don't have stupid shit happening where like people are just coming and slapping the ball out of people's hands, which we fall victim to way too often. We can't lose and waste possessions that way. I'm also very concerned with what's it going to be like. How much are we going to get to see Cat and Mitch on the court together? Because I think that can be a very good lineup, and I think it can be very beneficial. But, those guys have to come out there. I just think defensively, we're a better team, and the offensive rebounds that Mitch gives us are invaluable for those extra possessions. So I think we're going to need to see as much of Mitch as we can. I think pull back on the precious time. Only use precious when
time.
You
there
have
should be
to.
almost zero precious time in the playoffs.
I hope so. But yeah, Mitch needs to be getting all those minutes as long as he can, make it. Let's get Mitch out there as much as we can. So it's going to be a really interesting series.
I think the major keys to this series are things that the first thing that you just mentioned is keeping them off the offensive glass. I think that's a major key. And then also how we shoot and defend the three. And I think that's going to really dictate if this is an easy series or a tough series. If we do those things really well, I think we could beat them in 5. I think if we don't do those things well, we could lose in 6 or 7. Honestly, this Detroit team to me is just the
very scary.
It's a very scary matchup for the Knicks. Now, we watched Tom Thibodeau a couple seasons ago just run circles around this coach. Okay, so will we see the adjustments in game and from game to game that we need from Tom Thibodeau? Because to me, one of the big things that I'm looking forward to is how much does Deuce play? We need a good amount of Deuce needs to be playing, I think, upwards of like 25 plus minutes. If it was up to me, Deuce would be in the starting lineup instead of Josh Hart. I think that is just so clear that he works better with that starting lineup. All of the numbers bear it out, and yet he's played with him and the other 4 in the starting lineup a total of 82 possessions in all 82 games, which to me is, I don't even know how that's possible. So making sure that we don't have lineups out there where they can just totally ignore Josh Hart. And if Josh Hart is going to be totally ignored from the perimeter, do we utilize him as a cutter? We've watched OG Anunoby step up offensively. Does that continue into the postseason? And then we need OG. We need 20 a game from OG. We need OG up there in the 20s. And I would be okay with Brunson taking a bit of a back seat on the scoring end to be able to get those other guys involved, because I feel like I can ask Brunson for it at any time. I feel like especially Bridges, we need to get them started early. We need Bridges to be involved with the ball in his hand and not just parked in the corner early. And then once you get that from him and he gets involved in the offense, the defense turns up, and he's a guy that you can look to get you buckets throughout the game, especially in the clutch time with that midi of his. But if we don't get him involved early, as we know, sometimes he can kind of, fade to the background, and we cannot have that from Bridges. I just really hope that these guys are not going into this last week or so where we have this time off and where we are resting guys at the end of the season. I hope that the coaching staff and the guys that are actually out on the floor are all both doing the work as far as studying and all adjusting the mindset to say, hey, there's a couple things that we have not done our best this season, and we need to step them up and do our best at those right now. I just hope that's the mindset. I'm not sure if it is, but it's good. We're going to see. And if we somehow lose this series, it becomes an absolute disaster of a season. It becomes an absolute disaster for all of the, new additions, and it becomes a disaster for Tom Thibodeau. And I know Stephen A was on the record saying that he feels like if we lose this series, that Thibodeau's job could be on the line. It's hard for me to believe that they would move on after giving this guy an extension, but we've seen Leon Rose be willing to shake it up before. I think that if, we end up somehow losing, and especially if we lose in embarrassing fashion, Tibbs could be in trouble. And me, I'm not saying that we should. I have my issues with Tibbs. I'm not out here saying that we should absolutely, fire Tibbs and move on, like many people on Knicks Twitter and in the overall Knicks Nation believe. I'm not saying that. If we lose this series, I think Tibbs has to go. But that's just me.
I think if we lose the series, Tibbs will get fired. I don't know if that's the best move. I don't know what these guys who just got fired, one of them, Malone or something you bring in. I don't know. I don't know where there's, a straight up better coach out there. But I do realize the situation. I do realize the pressures that are on. And if we lose the series, if Tibbs doesn't get fired, he'll surely be at risk, at major risk, because it's not going to be a good look if we lose this series, man. So, and I know Tibbs knows that. He feels that. I know that they're working on everything in this week to be ready for this series. There's no way they're just sitting back and just chilling, waiting for Saturday. They're working hard. They're working hard to correct things that didn't go well. I believe that much in Tibbs, as well as the players on the team. And I believe in the leadership of Brunson. Brunson has to come out from the start and, like you said, get guys involved, as well as just play a good brand of basketball, man. And, it starts on the defensive end, Nick. It has to, because if our defense doesn't play well enough, we can't just go out there and try to outscore everybody. We're not going to win that way. We're not. So, we're not long enough or tall enough going to the basket, but we need to play defense well, and we need to go to the basket a lot because we need to put other teams in foul trouble and get other people on their heels instead of them doing it to us. I think that will play a big part.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I agree with you on most of it. I agree with. I listen. No, I agree with you on everything because I do believe that Tibbs is out there and he is doing his absolute best and working his hardest. I also believe that Tibbs is a little bit stubborn. And he's a little bit old school in his thought process. And I'm hoping that, after some analysis, he just mixes things up a little bit more. That's all.
I think, Nick, if you spend a season with just about any coach, we're going to have moments where we think that this guy's stubborn. Clearly, we can go up and down with Tibbs. Last year we were talking about Tibbs for Coach of the Year, and how we felt so strongly about him. This year, not so much. Not as many people feeling that way. I think whoever we bring in as a coach, if we got rid of Tibbs, we would feel the same thing if we only won 51 games after last year. And we would find fault. I don't know. I don't know. I think, look, I do look at the whole body of work, and I say Tibbs has taken us a long way. Can he take us over to the promised land? That I don't know. Smarter minds than mine will make that decision. And this series and the outcome will play a big part.
Hey, if you're checking us out over on X, hop over to YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and please share it with your friends. Again, appreciate the love. Give us a follow on X and definitely hop over to that YouTube page. The NBA play-in started yesterday. Jimmy and Steph. Whew, I'm telling you, man, I said from the beginning, the first time I saw them play, Jimmy Butler, he gives them that post presence, even though he's not a big man, but he operates in the paint. He's so good at passing out of the paint. And now when you pair that with what Steph can do, and he just continues to wow. He seems like that guy is never going to age. He's still in fantastic shape. He still understands, how to position himself and do things on defense, in addition to being the greatest shooter of the basketball in the history of the world. Did you watch that game at all yesterday? And what do you think about the Warriors? If they are able to, obviously they're going to be in the playoffs. Do you think that they have a chance to come out of the West?
No, I don't. I don't think they're going to come out of the West. They're going to play Houston now, right?
Houston, and then
they're going to have a very tough time with Houston.
Yeah,
I really do. I think they're going to have a very, very tough time with Houston. I know a lot of people get all hopped up and whatnot. The way people are talking, it's like they're favored over Houston. Houston was second in the West, dude. Mm-hmm. People sleeping on Houston, man. If I'm betting on that series, I'm betting Houston to win.
What about Trae Young? Did you see his antics yesterday when he got tossed out of the game? Were you able to catch that?
I wasn't watching, but I did see the antics afterwards. It's lame, man. I mean, me and your Uncle Godfrey were talking about it. You're supposed to be the leader of the team. What are you doing? It's juvenile. It's silly. I mean, listen, man, like I tell your son, my grandson, all the time, you have to win and lose with the same aplomb. You can't be acting like a baby and like a bitch when you lose. That's just a very bad look, and you lost. You lost. And, Nick, I get it. People can always say, oh, the refs or this or that. dude, you lost, man. Stop with all the bullshit. Like I say, whenever you're the only people griping like that are people who are losing. It's just it is going to be that way. You never hear, and I mean, I get it that if you're winning, why are you bitching about the refs? But you know what, man? Like I say, Nick, unless you feel like there's the fix is in, it's just basketball, man. And there's human nature in referees and umpires and all that, and you got to play through it, and you got to deal with it, and you got to handle it like a grown ass man. And I don't think he did that last night.
Absolutely did not handle it like a grown ass man. I mean, come on, guy. Like, first and foremost, if I'm the NBA, I might get suspended for that. Now, you firing that ball at the referee. That's like, yo, we
You're not
can't
gonna
have
suspend
that.
him now if he gets.
I know,
yeah, but
obviously,
right.
because like, yo, you're firing that ball at the referee, then you're doing some slick shit as you're walking off, like, where you're like acting like you're gonna throw the ball. I haven't seen guys do stuff like that very often, man, or maybe ever since I've been watching basketball with the referee. I just thought it was really poor form on his part, but we shouldn't be surprised. This is who Trae Young is. The guy is top 2 or 3 in free throws attempted, yet always has an issue with the refs. And we've seen him be immature both when he's winning and when he's losing. So I'll at least give him credit for that. He does the immature thing no matter what side of it he's on. But yeah, man, I just think that it was poor form on his part. If I'm the league office, I'm definitely giving this guy a call and explaining to him that you can never do that shit again. And I just thought it was funny for, as a guy who does not like him, I kind of like the fact that he got the spotlight shown on him for acting like a petulant child.
Yeah, it's disappointing, as a young man, as I would hope that he would act better, but, he just has to be better. And I hope he will be for his own sake, but I really don't care. And, I mean, it was just like you said, poor form, man. Bush League. I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing? How are you, and you guys were losing by enough. God, they got spanked. They got spanked. Mm-hmm. So now it's even more embarrassing. When you're losing by that much and then you start acting the ass, that makes you look like more of an asshole, in my opinion. You don't walk off that court and say shit to me if I'm your friend or family and say, yeah, like, well, I showed them. No, dude, you didn't show nobody. You showed yourself, man. You showed yourself to be a fucking jackass, and that's not cool.
The NFL draft is next week. Travis Hunter, he continues to say that he wants to play both sides of the ball in the NFL. Now, I know that you don't think that he'll be able to do so, but
not full time.
Okay. If you were to draft him, would you play him at wide receiver, at corner, the majority of the time?
Oh, which one of them would I play him at majority of the time? That's a tough call, Nick. I honestly see if I was going to draft him, I'd say to him, listen, you're going to play both positions, but not full time like in college. That's crazy. Unless we see that you can and re-ramp up to that. But early on, we're going to make you either be a starting receiver. I think he should be a starting corner. He's just, but it's hard to say. I want to say he's elite as a corner, but he's pretty elite at the wide receiver position.
When you look at his numbers, it's like, 1,200 yards. I mean, it's not like he was.
Not just the numbers, Nick. It's the eye test. I watched quite a few games, and this guy can catch the damn ball. Holy smokes. He's fantastic. But that said, he's fantastic defending the ball too. Okay, holding receivers. So I'd probably start him at receiver just because at cornerback, I could have him coming in the nickel package, stuff like that. I don't know. But then again, that's a guy, man. I want him locked up against their best receiver. He's that guy. He's a top flight corner and could be a lockdown corner. It's a tough decision to make, and I would want to draft him. If I was like Cleveland or
they say he won't make it past the third pick.
Yeah, I don't see why the Giants wouldn't draft him. I mean, that kid would just explode in New York. Are you kidding?
I think the Giants should take a quarterback. I think Shador should go third, but that's my personal opinion. When it comes to Travis Hunter in particular, I believe that he should be given every opportunity to play both sides of the ball. I know that people say you can't do that in the NFL. Well, I didn't think anybody could do it in college until I just saw somebody do it. And maybe he really is just that next level of a talent. But if you had to pick one side of the ball for him to play on predominantly, I say you make him a starting corner, because you can bring him in for, say, like third downs and or some passing downs as a wide receiver. I think a corner, as opposed to having him, you don't draft this guy and have him play predominantly the nickel corner. You draft him so he can be one of your two main corners, and like you said, be matched up against the other team's best player or best wide receiver. So if it were me, I would have him come in, be an every down cornerback, and then have him play as many downs on the offensive side as a wide receiver as possible. And then we can see, as the training camp is starting and you're getting into playing preseason games, you're getting to play regular season games, I would give him every opportunity to be a full-time player on both ends, if possibly he could be. The other thing about the NFL is the manipulation of the salary cap. If you were able to get this guy to a point where he is legitimately a wide receiver and a corner, it's like having an extra player allotment under the salary cap, dollars and cents wise. So, see if he can do it. If he can, great, but definitely try your best to utilize him on both sides.
I think ultimately, Nick, it's not about talent. The kid has the talent. He definitely has the talent. It's physicality, Nick. I heard a stat today that was really telling. Only 2% of the kids who play college football play in the pros.
Sure.
2%. And a lot of that is, a lot of kids have talent, Nick. They cannot deal with the physicality of the NFL, both in trying to tackle people and people tackling you, So, going out there trying to do things when you're a little bit fatigued in the NFL is not like going out there trying to do things when you're a little bit fatigued in the NC2A, and you're playing corner, and you end up having to tackle some guy who's 180 pounds running at you. That same guy in the NFL is 230, and he's or 220, and he's much faster than that guy in college. And he's rocked up, and he's trying to run through you like you're a friggin' wall. So, dude, man, it's a very, very risky thing, and it leaves him open to injury. I'll be very interested to see how this works out. He's an extreme talent. I'm rooting for him. I'll be very interested to see how it works out.
Before we get out of here, shout to my guy, Charlie Ward, one of my favorite Knicks of all time. He has been named the new head coach for Florida A&M basketball. There needs to be a 30 for 30 done on Charlie Ward. The fact that he was the Heisman winner, won the national championship, and then ends up going undrafted after saying that he would not play in the NFL if he was not drafted in the first round. I don't understand why he's not mentioned in some of these conversations. When we talk about two-sport athletes, we talked about Bo and Dion recently. If you want to talk about success at the different levels, being a Heisman winner, winning a national championship, and then going on and playing 11 years in the NBA, wildly impressive. And I was reading about him a little bit and just like looking back at his stats and things like that, what he did in college. He had over 3,000 yards passing in that Heisman season. And he's a guy, if they want to talk about how small he is, he's 6'2", 180 pounds. It's like Jaden Daniels. If this guy was in today's, if it was today's world, Charlie Ward would be a top 10 pick in the NFL.
He might, Nick, but he wasn't a passer like Jaden Daniels. Okay, he couldn't throw the ball like Jaden Daniels. Not even close. I don't know if you remember it as much because you were very young. He was a good college quarterback. Nick, kind of like Tim Tebow was a really good college quarterback.
But he had 3,000 yards. It's not like he wasn't throwing the ball.
Nick. I get it. I get it. A lot of it would dump off to work done and so forth. Whatever. He played pretty good in college, Nick. Nobody thought he would be a great pro quarterback passing guy. Now, could he have been had he gotten a chance? I don't know. But honestly, judging him after college, he didn't seem like he was anywhere near the passer that some of the people you've compared him to.
I just think that some of that is our perception and the overall perception back then. Quite often, I think that his race hurt him a little bit. I think the fact that he ran the ball, and he had like 889 rushing yards in that Heisman season. But you look at some of his passing numbers. I mean, 69.5% completion percentage. He had 27 passing touchdowns in that season, 22 the year before, and had a 157.8 passer rating. I think that if you had that same guy in today's world with today's shift in overall perception and the different way that we view the game, now a quarterback who can run a little bit is not necessarily something that you're scared of. It's something that you want. I think he would have been definitely a first round pick and maybe even a top 10 pick in today's NFL if he were to come out.
He might be, but I just don't know how great a passer he was. That's just the eye test. Forget the numbers. Eye test. I have to watch him in college. He was a decent passer, not great.
Catch us every week on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts. Please follow, like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification button on all platforms. Really appreciate all the love. You can find us on all socials at Nic On Knicks. That's N.I.C. on Knicks. Love you, big guy.
Love you, kid.
Yeah.